Ready? Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tiki Hut Central. We are broadcasting from our brand new Tiki Hut studios right here in Claremont, Florida. I'm your host, Mr. Ken Rose, and behind the desk over there, let me introduce my lovely bride, Lisa Rose. Lisa, say hi to everybody.
Hi, everyone.
How you doing this week, Lisa?
I'm doing good.
Are you feeling a bit better today?
I'm doing a little better. I was a little under the weather the last couple of days, but I'm feeling better.
Excellent. So we're ready to do the show tonight, huh?
Yep.
Excellent. Cool. Hey, everybody. I've got a very special guest tonight. Some of you may recognize that face from his own show at South Lake TV. I'd like to welcome into the hut Mr. Joe Carlisle. Well, welcome to the show, Joe.
Thank you. They might recognize this pose much better.
That's the business card pose.
That's right.
I believe. I got to get my either my mic is off or
your
my
mic's real quiet.
My mic is really quiet.
Yeah.
Let's see. Is that any better?
No. Oh,
there we go. I think we're in now. Yeah, that sounds better. I guess, right?
yeah. It's just a little quiet compared to ours.
Check. All right.
See, it's all fun and games till you
It's
go
all
live.
fun and games.
There you go.
That's how this usually goes.
That's right.
That sounds good.
All right, cool. Okay, well, since we're always live, there's always technical issues, and we apologize for that. But we're going to talk to Joe in a little bit here. As everybody knows from our usual show, we always open an episode with a beer. So we've got a couple of beers. I think Joe opted for water because he's always running around town, and he can't be drinking beer as much as we can. But Lisa, let's go ahead and bust open. This is from Cigar City Brewing. What's that, about 60 miles away? Right? I think it's in Tampa, right? Cigar City is in Tampa. I believe it's really... What the hell is it called over there?
That's what they call it, Cigar City.
Cigar City. This is a nice lager. I'm going to give it a test, and then we'll get into the show here.
They have little Havana over there.
How is it?
Oh, that's pretty damn good. That's all right. And it's brewed with Bavarian barley and hops. Cigar City from Tampa.
Nice.
Try it out. All right.
Does it have notes of raspberry and hazelnut in it, or?
It doesn't have notes of anything in it. I can't even hear any music at the can. I don't know what the hell's going on with it.
Tastes like beer.
Tastes like beer. I've always said, Joe, there's two kinds of beer: cold beer and warm beer.
Yeah, that's right.
Everything else is kind of the same. But anyway, like I said, this was really surprising tonight to get Joe on the show because Joe's always on the other side of the table.
Yeah,
so we're going to get to know Joe, and you're going to get to know Joe because nobody knows him. So Joe,
everybody knows me.
Everybody
the question
knows
is,
Joe.
do they know the real Joe?
Well, here we go. We're going to see if the truth comes out. What are you doing over there, Lisa? You got something important to do? I think Lisa's...
No, I'm going to try to broadcast from my Facebook.
Oh, okay. All right. So Lisa's still doing technical work. I guess that's what a producer does.
That's right.
So Joe, you are originally from New Hampshire, is that right? Or somewhere?
I came here from New Hampshire. I'm originally from Boston.
Oh, well, everybody, this episode is now over. Don't even tell me that you're a Red Sox fan.
I am not a sports fan at all. Now, Miss Pat, my wife, was here.
Right.
Those would have been fighting words.
Wow. So Miss Pat is a Red Sox.
She is a Red Sox fan. I once tried to bet on a Red Sox game when I was young and fresh out of the Marine Corps, knew nothing about sports, but a friend of mine said that was the year that they were going to win. It was 1986.
It was 86.
And I lost 3 months of pay. Miss Pat was so mad at me she couldn't even see straight. Somehow Bill Buckner was my fault because I bet on the game.
That's God's way of punishing you for gambling. But yes, I watched the game. They were playing the Mets in '86, and the Mets went on to win the World Series. I'm not a Mets fan though. I'm a fan of the evil empire,
right.
The Yankees. So. Now, you mentioned Patty, and from what I see, she seems to be more like your girlfriend than your wife because every picture that you guys take together, your heads are always on one another.
Yeah.
Just like you just got married.
I got to honestly tell you, people wonder if that's how our marriage really is. And the truth is it is. I mean, I literally won the wife lottery.
So it's not fake book in your case.
No, it's not fake book. It's it's funny.
Is that actually a thing?
I posted a couple of weeks ago a picture of Patty at our wedding. And
I saw that.
Yeah. And everybody was so sweet. All of my friends, I must have had 100 comments. Congratulations. Happy anniversary. But it wasn't our anniversary. I posted the picture because it came up on my time hop. And I was like just overtaken with how grateful I am to be married to this girl and how beautiful she is and still is. And
Aw.
now we celebrate 35 years in July 5th.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Congrats.
We call it birth anniversary. Her birthday is the 27th. Mine is the 27th of June. Mine is the 1st of July. And then
Wow.
our anniversary is the 5th. Kids got sick of throwing 3 parties. So
Now you're down
it's
to
the
one.
birth anniversary weekend. It's one shot, one present.
One gift, one
Birth
piece of cake.
anniversary. I like
That's-
that.
That's all right. So 35 years. And now you have 4 children, and I guess they're all grown, right? Who are your kids?
I have 4 children. My youngest is William.
Okay.
My daughter is the next oldest, is Jennifer. My next oldest who would be my second son, is Robert. And then my oldest is Tim. Tim lives with his wife, Samantha, lovingly known as Sam, and their 6-month-old daughter, Paige, in
Oh.
Gainesville. Tim, I don't know where he got it. His mother and father are city people. I mean, I am like a city guy, and he is a country boy. He married a country girl.
Do they fish and do all that?
They do all of that.
Fishing?
He works on his father's. He works in the medical field, but he helps his father-in-law with his dairy farm. It's just I couldn't take it for about 12 seconds, but
Not
he
like
loves
those,
it. Robert is a businessman and lives with his wife Mariah
Mhm.
in West Palm Beach, and they have
We
a
were just down that
2-year-old.
way.
Yeah, we have a 2-year-old granddaughter by them named Zora, and she is the light of my life. As a matter of fact, I carry pictures. Whenever the kids send me a picture, it's an instant smile, literally an instant smile. It doesn't matter. Somebody could have just cut off my leg, but a picture of one of the grandbabies comes up, I'll go, ah.
That's my mom right now.
great. So 4 kids, 2 grandchildren. So and as everybody knows, Sunday's Father's Day. So let's start. What's the best thing about being a dad?
Do you know, I have to say, this is just for me, the best. I wasn't always a good dad.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, there was a long time I was like, it would seem like I was working really hard to be the worst father in the entire world.
Wow.
Miss Pat and I, while we are celebrating 35 years and we are insanely happy, it hasn't been easy. We were separated 3 times, and that was, close to divorce 2 of those times.
Wow.
There has been quite a bit of water under the bridge and challenges overcome. And I don't know, we might get into 1 or 2 of those, but there came a point in my life where I was fortunate enough that some men spoke into my life and pointed out that I was making things much harder than they needed to be, and just kind of loved me enough to teach me just how to be a better human being. And that kind of led into being a better dad. And so I really kind of started working for that. For me, the best part of being a dad, as you're going to laugh, is when they pick up a check. Because I know many dads.
Yes, you're right.
I know so many dads that just never happens.
Yep.
And my kids, when we moved to Claremont, my kids were adults. It was only, I think it's 3 or 4 years ago. Maybe, like 3 years ago. We moved here to Claremont, and my kids literally put a chair in the yard and wouldn't let me touch anything.
Wow.
Was Dad just tell us, don't you touch anything. We're going to move it all. And in a period of 1 day, we moved they downsized a 2,300 square foot home into an 800 square foot home.
Wow.
And that was, I made the mistake of telling Miss Pat, maybe we ought to downsize, thinking 400 square feet, 500 square feet. I came home and she's got this list of places that's under 1,000 square feet. She's like, let's go minimal. Okay, baby, we'll give it a try.
No.
But that was probably the best thing for your relationship.
It's actually kind of cool because it's very similar to when we were newlyweds, because when you're newlyweds, you have a very small apartment, she was 20. Let me get this right. When we got married, I was 23. She was 22. And she had graduated college. I was out of the Marine Corps and
Mhm.
attending college myself. And so you go through that, but when you're newlyweds, you're like stepping on each other.
Mhm.
Right. Well, now we're in the same spot. We're both a little larger than we were in those days.
Some days I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
I don't know what goes on.
Yeah. Can I put a glass of wine on that?
Almost. It depends how bloated.
And but now it's like, we don't bump into each other like that. It's, we have that same closeness, but we know each other's movements. So it's,
Very. I like to use the word fluid.
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 That's
Mhm.
I like that. That
Yeah.
works. It works.
That's what he says about our relationship.
Well, like you said, you were separated 3 times. I've been separated from 3 other wives. So and when I look at your pictures with Patty, I'm very cognizant of my relationship with Lisa, because many times we're sitting on the couch, and in all my other relations, we always sat, one on one side, and Lisa snuggles up next to me every night. We hold hands, we watch TV, we watch these shows about relationships, Married at 90 Days, and all this other mumbo jumbo. We say, "Wow, good boy, we really have it good."
Yeah.
And we have 2 recliners side by side on this new couch, but we only use the one side.
We only
And I
use
have my legs on his legs.
And that's it. So we're very snuggly.
And I'm
Do you
like, does this bother you? I feel like I'm too clingy. And he's like, no, I love it.
So
So
at that point, 15 years ago, when I actually it was a rehab. It was a place called Dunklin. I had an extreme drug problem. And I wasn't a very good guy. And one of the unique things about this program was they didn't just work on me. It was 10 months long. I mean, in the swamps of Okeechobee. I mean, it wasn't.
That's not a pretty place.
No, and we didn't. Well, I see it as beautiful now, but I didn't back then. And the thing is, we didn't. It was not the kind of place where we had group therapy after breakfast, right? I mean, we got up and we had chores to do, and we checked in, and then we had quiet time, which has become an integral part of my life. It's where we journal, and I learned how to ask. Patty and I actually teach. I saw
you guys have a show every so often.
Every Monday night. This Monday,
I'm just fixing my microphone.
She wasn't feeling good. I wasn't feeling good. So we didn't do it this week, but we teach journaling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about getting a better relationship with the Lord, how people can actually use a journal to hear directly from God and to the answers to their questions, right? And so this has been a big key. But in that program, Patty also had to commit to coming down every weekend for 10 months.
Oh, wow.
She didn't just drop me off. Well, she did just drop me off. I joke with her that she left out of there with a cloud of she's like, I'm out of
dust,
and she's like, he's gone. I'm gone.
Taking up the whole bed
He's
now.
Okay, that's right. I don't have to worry about him for a change. And that was a very scary time, because I was like, I'm standing there getting showered with pebbles as the tires are spinning.
So she was like launching out.
She was gone.
you're like, she's never coming back.
She tells this story a little differently, but I have witnesses. But one of the values of that place is they gave Patty and I some marriage skills. So we had to go through a part of the program called Family Recovery. The founder of the program really had kind of a cool analogy. He said, if you have a car with 2 flat tires and you fix 1 flat tire, the car still isn't going anywhere. And so in a marriage, he liked to work on both people because there was some dynamic. And so we learned 2 skills that we have done every day since, which really has made the difference in our intimacy. And one of the things they did there is they taught us to pray for each other eye to eye. So we don't close our eyes and bow.
Right, you guys don't. Yeah, because I've seen the journaling show where you guys, usually people are bowing and you guys are looking at each other,
right,
affirming.
And part of that was recovery work, because you're looking somebody in the eye. It's a whole lot harder to lie to.
Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, it can be done. I was pretty good manipulator and liar, but it's harder, and it's created an intimacy. So the thing we do is I pray with her eye to eye every morning, and it doesn't have to be long. You've seen us do it. We do that very same thing in the morning. Sure. It's 5 minutes What do you need? What do I need? I bless her as her husband, which I think our world could use a whole lot more of. I don't think husbands bless their wives enough in general, but we also don't serve our wives enough, and that's not a namby-pamby, thing. In the church, we argue all the time: should the wife be submitted? And I tell guys, well, yes, she should. The question is, are you leading the example? You should be submitted to the church, the Lord, to your employer. Who are you submitted to if you want her to submit to you? But the other thing is we catch up for 20 minutes every night. We find some time to sit down and look each other in the eye and say, what's going on? How was your day?
We do that after work.
Yeah.
You always kind of
outside by the pool. We just kind of talk about the day.
Yeah. Pool time's kind of our, we just sit out there and just kind of watch the water and talk and do that.
It's funny. So many people, they fall in love with somebody because they're spending time with them talking. I mean, we all remember that, talking all night on the phone. I can remember.
We talk all the time.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. But a lot of people get married, like they're married longer than a year or two and they don't, or the only time they talk is the business of life. It's not, what do you think? What do you feel?
Right.
And again, it's not touchy-feely. Nobody knows me more than 12 seconds that doesn't understand I have an overabundance of testosterone in my veins, right? But there comes a place that you can really feel like a man when your wife really feels secure and like a woman.
Sure, no, I agree. And in fact, we were talking just in general conversation about intimacy. I don't know where we're going on this show. Now we're into intimacy and all of our issues. But
we call this the Joe effect.
The Joe effect. But one of the discussions that Lisa and I have had, because being married to Lisa, she sees, I'm doing the dishes, I'm cooking, I'm doing whatever, laundry, she's making the bed or whatever, and she wasn't used to that. And I said to Lisa, I said, being married before and raising 4 children, I knew that if I picked up the slack as a man in my household, that my wife would have more time for me. So selfishly, I get shit done, so that,
but it
so
works.
But it works. But it works. And I always like to serve her. With whatever it is. I am the best cabana boy in Lake County, just to put it out there.
Sometimes you sit down with a snack though late at night. I give him crap. I'm like, oh yeah, I wanted one too. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
And I'm like, I won't forget that.
So,
no more butter crunch ice cream.
So that's enough of the intimacy. Now we're going to talk about cars and muscles and greasy. No. I asked you, what's the best thing about being a father? So the next real question is, what's the best thing about being a grandfather?
It's really funny that a lot of us struggle. I'm a believer in Christ, okay, and that's a big part of my life, but I don't believe like a lot of people do. So I try to warn people that my theology. I don't believe in religion, although I attend a church.
Sure.
That I love, the River, but I found that in my own life. The people who didn't beat me over the head with their doctrine, the ones who just really showed me, how God loved them by their actions. And that's how I try to do it. So to answer your question, I think the best thing about being a grandfather, because mine are little. I joke with my wife. She's the cuddler, right? Women are nurturers, right? Men, we're providers.
Correct.
But we're fun.
We are fun. I am super fun.
Okay. So I only half joke with my wife. I'm okay if I miss a little bit of the cuddling, or if Zora, the 2-year-old, doesn't quite recognize me because Pat has been able to spend a little more time with her, because I know by the time she's 4 or 5, she'll know I'm the guy to come to for candy, for money, for adventures, for ice cream. I'm going to be let's go see the hero.
Well, speaking of heroes, you're good at leading this.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, man, he knows what the hell he's doing. Let's go. So being heroes, you graduated high school and you went right into the Marines. So I want to thank you for your service to the country.
Yes, thank you.
Now,
you're welcome. I stayed alive.
Right. You stayed alive.
I dodged when I should have.
You did 3 tours, right? So, and you put 4 years in,
Mhm.
and you got out like exactly in 4 years.
Yeah.
Now,
Hmm.
I
served 20 and it only took me 4 years to do it.
yeah. I had made the mistake once of not realizing how Marines are as opposed to Air Force, Army, Navy, Coast Guard. Marines are like once a Marine, always a Marine, Semper Fi. They're built differently. And all of the Marines that I know are very strong, stern, but also teddy bears.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, same thing with you.
There's just
I mean,
something. Yeah. I mean, you could ask my wife about that. I'm Coast Guard. Don't forget, I'm the mean one. I'm mean.
Oh, I see.
She's like, yeah, I don't believe it. There's something about the Marine Corps. It tends to attract guys who are looking for something greater.
Mm-hmm.
And in many cases, it's not even about service. It's about proving something to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of jarheads join because they're trying to prove something to their fathers.
Right.
And many times we don't realize that till we're sitting in a foxhole with, the rounds falling all around us going, oh man, what an idiot.
No, I can only imagine. I can only imagine.
The thing about Marines though is, one of the things the Marine Corps does very well is teaches heritage.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least while I was in, I would hope that the modern Marine Corps is still like that. And I mean, I don't want to get into politics, but it is scary sometimes to look at some of the things they're trying to do with the military and to understand, these are the guys that you like put on staff to hurt people and break things. That's what they're supposed to do. That's the purpose, to make sure the people here don't get hurt or have their things broken.
Well, I think Jack Nicholson said it best in A Few Good Men. That we go to places. Yeah. You don't go to the dark places we go to.
Right.
So the Marines overall, because in the shop, I mean, I'm always doing printing for different organizations and stuff, but the Marines, there's a real sense of brotherhood,
Mm-hmm.
much like firemen, much like policemen, that a sense of brotherhood where I don't know that the other military branches that exists as much. I mean, maybe it does. Maybe just comes.
I made the mistake once of the good friend of ours that you're referring to.
Oh yeah.
That's a Marine. I made the mistake when I met him. I was like, "Oh, you were a Marine," and he's like, "I still am a Marine."
I am a Marine.
I am a Marine.
Yes.
And that's that.
And we're not bashful about correcting people about that, right?
And I was like, "I'm sorry."
It's okay. Just don't make that mistake again.
Right. I learned.
And he's like one of the sweetest guys.
Oh yeah.
Sweetest guy.
It comes back to heritage. It is. I mean, for instance, my grandfather was a Marine. So many times Marines are, people who have served before, but part of that comes from, the Marine Corps is the smallest service.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so it has 2 training grounds, San Diego and Parris Island. And of course I went to Parris Island. So I think that's the tough one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, guys from the other side are called
Hollywood
thing, right? Marines, right? But the thing that makes them what they are is the fact that, it's like I have sat down and had conversations with guys who were at Iwo Jima.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
I mean, like years ago, when many of them were still around, or guys who were at Khe Sanh, or guys who may have been at the Chosin Reservoir. And what it comes down to is, and even since, guys who have been to Iraq and Afghanistan, and what it comes down to is, a friend of mine actually said this to me, and it's probably the best description. A wolf recognizes another wolf, and the truth is, you understand, it doesn't matter when you were in, it doesn't matter where you were, what that feels like. And the thing is, nobody else knows. And so you can even have, as a jarhead, I have affinity with guys who were in the Army, but who were deployed, for instance, to Afghanistan or Iraq, because there's some understanding for who they are. The Marine Corps tends to be because we're specialists. Okay. And by specialists is what we specialize in is hurting people and breaking things. It doesn't matter if you're, working in the office or in
keep them away from the China cabinet.
Yeah. It's what we do.
Sure.
World War II, for an example, guys went to Normandy. All right. And that was D-Day was awful. And, they were months, but they tended to fight a battle and be pulled out of the line for weeks or months for rest and recovery. The Marines in World War II would go into, for instance, Guadalcanal or Saipan. And it wasn't just the invasion. It was the next 5 or 6 months constantly under fire, constantly on the line. And they never pulled these guys out. It was like, okay, you went to this island. Now we're going to this island. Now we're going to this island. Many times the only break you got was the time period between finishing the one battle and transport to the next. And
like
that was
concert tour.
Yeah. And that was kind of my experience. I was in the invasion of Grenada and we were in Grenada approximately 3 weeks or a month, enough to quell the violence and for the army to come in and occupy, which is much more their task. And 4 days later, I was on the ground in Beirut for the third time.
Oh, wow.
And that's so the reason Marines tend to have that brotherhood is that common readiness experience. There is never a break. And so our lives tend to get messed up a lot afterwards.
I can imagine.
Because we try to approach the rest of life
like a Marine.
It's like, what do you mean we got nothing left to do? No, there's another hill to take.
Wow. So, I mean, great stories. I mean, and history, one of my things that I complain about as far as history goes is that, and I don't want to be political either. We have to stop hiding history.
Yeah.
Because when we hide history, history will repeat itself. I know that the past few years we're taking down these statues and what have you, so that because that was I guess that was now bad history. So we have to hide the statues of heroes of that time.
Erase it out of history books, everything else.
And to me, I listened to some of the Jews that were liberated from concentration camps, and they are very adamant that those camps never get taken down.
Right, exactly.
That nothing ever gets removed. And I think that that's important. Now, people may say, well, no, we got, there's bad things, there's bad people everywhere. But when we start putting away history in storage lockers and things, I think that history will repeat itself.
Well, one of the things I think that is so beautiful about America, and again, this is a jarhead's perspective, okay, is that every country has had bad periods where they did awful things. It's true. The difference between America and those other countries is we acknowledge that they're bad and that they were wrong.
Right.
And that we want to move on and change. We don't nobody justifies what happened to the Native American in the Trail of Tears.
Right. Absolutely.
It was wrong. Okay. Nobody justifies slavery. And I think the danger in eliminating history is you could easily have a generation who has no idea.
Correct.
Like you said, history repeats itself.
See, I would like to see in school, and then we'll get into some fun stuff. Sorry, everybody. I would like to see history in high school taught backwards.
Yeah.
Because I graduated in '82, so you graduated a couple years before I did. And I know in high school, we got up to World War II, and that was it.
Yeah.
Where if we worked backwards, from 2021 through Vietnam, through, all of these other things, I think that the students today would be more knowledgeable. I mean, to me,
I can remember in high school that if you were in high school, history was actually where I went to school. History was actually broken into 3 classes. So your junior and senior year, you took all 3 of these classes, and then I think they were half semester.
Right, but it was like European history.
It was well, American history was 3 phases. Okay. So like you had the discovery and colonial period, which may have had some function of, because, well, I went to a Catholic school. So you started with Western civilization,
right,
which was, the ancient period, the Phoenicians and the Greeks and the Romans and all of that.
Way back.
Yeah. And then you would have a period in you were studying European history from the ancient time. We were talking maybe 500-600 BC up until the Enlightenment, up until the discovery of America, and that's generally when American history took over.
Correct.
So you're studying American history from the discovery of America to approximately the end of the Revolution. Okay. Then you would study from that period following the Revolution through the Civil War.
Right.
And in your senior year, which was the class everybody wanted to, you would study from the first semester would be the study of the period following the Civil War through World War II. And then the spring semester of your senior year was World War II to modern day. Now, of course, relatively, there's so much more to study now because there's an additional 40 years.
Sure.
Right. It just, I can remember being in high school and amazed. I've always been fascinated by that World War II period, particularly even in high school, by the concept of the Nazi concentration camps. Because I think when I look at those specials, those documentaries, I think, not me, buddy.
Right.
Not me. Okay, look, you might have fooled the first 9 guys to go into that trench.
Sure.
Okay. But if I'm waiting in that line and I've seen 5 groups of guys go and heard the gunshots, you come to me, you're going to have to shoot me in the face.
Yeah. It is remarkable.
I mean, I'm going to bite you. I'm going to be zombie. Yeah. I'm going to bite your neck out,
It's remarkable, but nobody had ever experienced it before, I guess. But
I actually heard somebody describe that as, well, it didn't suddenly happen. They did this one thing and then they did another thing and then they did another thing. And I think that's something to learn. We have to watch, what our government is doing.
Sure.
And whether you agree with it or not. I mean, I have a side of the aisle I fall on, but I'm just as suspicious of them as the side I don't agree with.
Sure.
Because you have to watch people because absolute power
all the time.
Absolutely.
All the time. Getting back to high school.
Okay.
That's it for history today, everybody. Tune in
this
tomorrow.
Guy has done his research, by the way.
Tune in tomorrow. High school, you caught the performing bug, I guess, or the directing bug. And I did a little research and came across this Harvey of this young, good-looking guy with a full head of hair sitting on a couch.
22.
So how did we go? Now, did you go from acting to directing, or was it?
It was kind of, in high school, I fell in love with theater because I was actually kind of a bashful kid. And it kind of pulled me out of my shell. This guy allowed me to be on a stage.
Be loud.
And it was one of those things, progression from, it wasn't even be loud. Cause when I started, it was just a little, Joe, I was a curtain puller. I just wanted to meet people, and
like a meet and greet.
Yeah. I just wanted to be with the cool kids, and of course I didn't realize at the time the theater kids were not the cool kids, at least according to everybody else, but I thought they were. And that gave me a love for what I was doing. I realized I had some innate talent. Well, I probably wouldn't consider myself good at that time, but because I really was completely enamored of the "I'll be a star" concept.
Sure.
Right. Actually, I joined them. Part of the motivation for me joining the Marine Corps was Lucille Ball and Carol Burnett were on a panel that I saw when I was a senior in high school. And they said the best school for an actor is life. So if you want to be an actor, go live life. And I thought, I'm from this little tiny town in New Hampshire where nothing happens. I can remember in high school, one of the big things that happened, of course, New Hampshire, we had the first election every year. So we had the president, we got some attention once every 4 years, but McDonald's opened for breakfast. That was like a new thing when that was big. They were giving away hash browns. That's the kind of town
that was the news.
Yeah, that was
the most exciting news.
It's the most exciting news. So when I went to college, I went to study theater, and that picture was taken. Me and some friends of mine at school were decided to produce the Concord Youth Summer Theater.
Okay.
And that's a big thing. If you're young actor in college, you do summer stock.
Yeah.
Good training ground, right?
I've heard all that.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to do the Concord Youth Summer Theater, and we got some backers. And it was the year I got married. And so I think it was the summer between my freshman and sophomore year at Plymouth State College. And I went on my honeymoon, and my set decorator, my set designer, builder, one of my best friends, used the entire budget to build a set with 2x4s. And I get the phone call that said, Joe, we don't have any more money. I said, what do you mean we don't have any more money? Well, I'm on my honeymoon. Well, my sweet wife, I should have known how lucky I had it then, but it took me many years to appreciate it. We went home.
Wow.
Because the play was in trouble. And she was
packed
trooper.
up, and that was it.
Packed up, and that was it. So that was me being Harvey. I was not directing that one. I assistant directed, because the set decorator, the set guy, was the director, and it just wasn't working out. That guy is still a friend of mine today. We're still close. He actually works for ABC. But I moved into directing in college.
Okay.
I had the advantage of being 23 years old as a freshman and a combat Marine, going to school with people whose average age of a freshman, the other people in my
18
class
or 19,
were like 18 or 19. And in a lot of ways, it's funny that Marine still stuck with me, because in those days, if you were in the theater or in music, you were considered, well, let me say, not as masculine as people would assume.
Maybe
you
soft,
are.
or
yeah. And a few football players learned that just because somebody chooses to be an actor does not necessarily mean that they were gay,
right,
or that they were willing to allow their friends who might have been gay to be beat up.
Sure.
And that was, just the way it was.
That's why it's good to be a Marine or know a Marine.
Or know a Marine.
One of the two.
But that was a great time in my life. And I went, I much of my life I kept trying to go back to theater. I've actually been in several movies. My biggest claim to fame was I was in a civil action with Robert Duvall.
Oh, Google that. No,
you can Google it. The problem is you're only going to find me in there. If you can find an uncut version, you'll find me for about
you're
5 seconds, an entire month of filming.
Right.
When the movie comes in, I'm literally in it for 5 seconds, walking past.
And that was it.
Somebody. That's it.
That's
the only thing.
Wow.
Only
Your claim to
the
fame.
rest of me is on the cutting room floor.
Well, what brought you to South Lake, Joe? I mean, what you and your family?
My family and I came here to Lake County in 1999. I had gone into business with a fella who turned out to be a crook. And my wife and I didn't want to come to Florida. We wanted to go somewhere else. It was the height of the .com bubble. And I had gotten hooked up with this guy who had an online coffee company. And it's called the Flying Saucer Cafe. And I had a lot of restaurant, because I was an actor, I had a lot of restaurant experience. And, it was like, that's the old joke,
right.
You're in New York, somebody says, oh, you're an actor. Says, oh, what restaurant do you work in?
That's right. That is exactly
the
right.
cliche,
Yes.
right?
LA, same thing.
Yeah. And so, Lake County. So we moved here because I'd gone into business with this guy. And the idea was I was going to take him from online to bricks and mortar. And we had some great concepts. Had meetings with Subway, because that was before they were doing breakfast. And we my concept where they were going to sell our coffee, and I talked them into doing breakfast. And, it's really fun. It's one of those examples where if my partner had been half honest, we'd be billionaires
Right.
by now.
Well,
Right.
greed it does very bad things.
Yeah. Greed and ego.
Yes.
Greed and ego. So we came here and we got stuck here. And so my wife and I, because I was an actor and a waiter and she was a teacher, had never had a problem finding jobs. The first 15 years of we've been married about 15 years. The time we got here, so the first 15 years of our marriage, we lived in 6 states, 12 towns, 15 houses.
Wow.
We were gypsies.
Sure.
We just pick up and move a lot. We got here. Now I had 4 kids. The youngest was, let me see if I get this right. My youngest was 5 and my oldest was 11. They'll correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh,
They may even correct me on Facebook if they're watching.
yeah. If they're live, they can comment right away.
Please do.
Lisa will read off the comments.
Right. And by the way, if you're watching or if you're listening to this, you can watch us on the Tiki Hut Facebook.
Right. You can go to the Tiki Hut Facebook page. Watch us live there tonight. We're also on my live Facebook page. We're on Lisa's page live. We're even on YouTube live right now. So you can see us there too. So
you can catch us.
Check out these 2 good-looking guys here, because you're not going to find us together very often, because
right.
it gets too crowded with the ladies.
So we came here and we got stuck here, and it turned out to, I had to get a job. The business thing didn't work out. The guy was a crook. I still had issues and I got into some trouble. And so we got stuck here. And while we were stuck here, the first winter hit. And I can remember thinking that we were living in Leesburg at the time on the shore of a lake. I mean, it was gorgeous, very small house to have 4 kids in. That was part of my partner was supposed to rent us a house, and we get here and it's 800 square feet. I'm like,
with 4,
I have 4 children, right? What are you doing to me? And the idea was we were going to come and we're going to make $1 million. We were going to be here for a year and a half, get a location opened at Universal, and but it never worked out. We got the meetings, we got investors. He took off with the money. We got stuck.
Wow.
But I got a job, and what ended up happening was winter hit. And I'm on the phone with my mom, and she's talking about the pipes freezing, and my dad's back out from shoveling plow snow, and my brother's
done that.
Yeah, my brother's all sick because he slipped on the sidewalk and busted his tailbone. For some reason, every time you slip on the ice,
it's always
bust
your tailbone.
Yep.
Then you get sick 3 days later.
Right.
I don't know. There's got to be. I'm sure a doctor knows why, but I don't
It's
understand.
a special disease.
Yeah, I don't understand what the connection is. But I can remember turning around and seeing on the television a file footage of a car sliding into like a 6-foot snowbank. I had just finished. It was Christmas Day. I had just finished playing Frisbee with my boys. I'm wearing flip-flops, shorts. I don't even think I was wearing I may have been wearing like a tank top of some sort, but I was like, and I'm standing home, I'm watching an eagle fly over the lake. And I can remember seeing that picture, and I can remember the thought almost audibly going through my head, I'm never going back. And it turns out that, Leesburg catches a bad rap, but it was a good time to be in the Leesburg area because the Villages wasn't such the monster that it is today, which was a great place to be near to raise your kids.
Sure.
There wasn't much up there except for Lake Square Mall.
And Lake Square Mall was not the place you wanted your 11, 12-year-olds, but you could trust your kids.
I went to movies there every weekend as a kid.
Wow.
So.
Well, I took my kids there quite
94,
a bit.
95.
But I wouldn't leave them there.
No.
Right. I should have left some of my kids there.
So, but that's what brought us to Lake County, and we lived and raised our kids there, and I got into the real estate business up there. And about 4.5 years ago, my wife, I was frankly sick of working with old people in the Villages, because when you work up there, you're fighting the Villages.
Sure.
And you're also fighting the 4,000 other realtors that think business in the Villages was easy because it was the bottom of the market, right? And I did the math one day and I realized I'm a numbers guy. I'm very analytical. So I did the numbers and I realized that on average, because of the number of realtors, the number of deals done outside of the villages, I could expect to do like 0.7 deals a year.
Mm.
That's a nice commission check.
Yeah.
If you do the math.
And I was doing good. I had a good year and I did 16 or 17 deals, but my average was $89,000.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
And, I was like, this is no wonder feel like I'm starving all the
You
time.
should have sold home warranties while you were doing that.
Yeah, I should have. And I did every little thing. There's the home warranties. You can find a little $50 here and there.
Sure.
Right,
Good
right.
little add-ons. But I went on a Parade of Homes
Right homes,
tour
all right.
down here. And there's two ladies behind me. I don't know who they were. They were so obnoxious. They whined the whole, and I mean, that Parade of Homes tour for realtors, like 6 hours long.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, it's an all
I did the
day.
one on when Bella Colino
Yeah.
opened it,
Yeah.
so
It's all day.
it's impressive.
Yeah. And these two ladies on the bus, they were behind me and they were whining about how hard they worked the previous year. So at one of the breaks, I was like, well, so how many deals did you do last year? How much did you do last year? Oh, I did $5 million. Oh, I only did $2 million. And I'm thinking, that's pretty decent. I did
Sure. I'll
close
do
to that,
5 million.
you know?
Yeah.
Well, I'm like, I did that close to that, doing my deals. And I was like, well, how many transactions did you do? Because the way they talked, I thought,
Right. They're doing a transaction
I
every
mean,
3 days.
yeah.
Right.
and I did 3, I did 5. And I was like,
You're like, I'm in the
Wow.
wrong
you're
place.
kidding me, And
I'm
and
in
I
the
did
wrong
some
place.
I did some checking around and realized that the average down here was a little bit better. And
Right.
Mhm.
I started to come down here and just drive around. See, and I wasn't even checking out real estate. I was just checking out the vibe of the place,
Mhm.
Mhm.
right? And I realized this is a place I wanted to be. So I shifted my business here. And Patty and I would drive down on the weekends because we were still living in Fruitland Park and still had kids in college.
Mhm.
And this thing with live, when your nose itches, it's hard.
I know.
You
It's
know?
just- sometimes I
Just go
say stuff
for
that
it.
I do
shouldn't be
this
on
all the
air. It's
time,
just a crazy thing.
I have a little signal because Jay has several cameras when we set up, and I have a little signal for him to cut to the guest,
Oh.
so I can like.
Oh, well, I can always cut anytime. Just tell me, just press number 2, and then Lisa's on camera. Wave to everybody, Lisa. Hey, there's Lisa over there. So,
All right, good. Now
and
we're back.
and back to the show. All right.
So I was here and I was going to go out on my own. I had a long list of not very good brokers. And I was running my business literally out of Panera Bread. So I drive down every day, and Patty and I would come down on the weekends, and we discovered these cool little places like Cheezers.
Mhm.
And what else? We discovered Epic Theater, and we discovered Goombas, and we discovered discovered Kim's Cabbage Patch.
Right.
And so I got this idea for a YouTube channel show because I was in real estate called Joe Discovers Claremont.
Which
And-
has, of course, morphed.
which has morphed. And the reason I was going to do it was because a friend of mine challenged me when Facebook Live was brand new. I had wanted to get more. I saw the move towards technology and video.
Certainly.
And I said to him, I need to know more about Facebook. And so my friend who knew something about social media said, look, Joe, pick one, get good at it. And I was like, okay, which one? He says, well, do this Facebook Live thing. So he did a thing that he called Coffee Chat. And he was funny. He would like riff on politics and news, and he was fun. I mean, like so funny. He'd go on 15, 20 minutes, like your belly would hurt. You'd be crying. You'd be laughing.
We would
so
do
hard.
that, but when you're in business, you got to kind of.
Well, he was
Yeah.
in business, and it
Did he
worked
stay in
for
business?
him.
Oh, it
Yeah.
worked. Okay, well, there
it
you
worked
go.
for him.
You got to be careful what you talk
But
about
here's
now.
the thing, but he was good. Okay. At that. And so I tried to do it. He challenged me. We were at a conference and he said, okay, we'll do this, Joe. Go 100 days. Just go on for 5-10 minutes, do a live 100 days. Doesn't have to be anything special. Heck, copy me. So I tried, except, well, actually I didn't try. I ignored him. I saw him 2 months later at a conference, and he said, so how's it going? I said, well, I haven't started yet. He says, yeah, I know. I've been watching you, not on. And then he said, the one thing you can say to a jarhead to get him to do almost anything, actually, you can get him to do anything Well, there's one other thing, but this is a family show, so we won't talk about that.
Look at the late night version.
That's right. Look at the late night version. He looked at me, he said, Joe, your problem is you're afraid. I was like, well, I'm not afraid. So I started the next day, and the challenge was 100 episodes in 100 days. And I tried to do what he did, but I only came off as angry white guy. Okay. And even worse, my kids would tell me, Dad, you're just old angry white guy. Something's got to change, you know. And that was not a good look for business. That was,
angry white guy doesn't really work.
Angry old white guy just wasn't cutting it for me. But I did notice I had done 25 or 30 episodes, and now this was in a row. It was every day. And I noticed when I looked at the episodes that were the most watched and the most shared weren't the ones where I talked about politics. It was ones where I shared bits of my life.
Yes.
Lessons, being grateful for my wife and why, how to be grateful for life, or maybe some little thing I noticed about a conversation I had with somebody and how it broke my heart. And those were really popular. Like when Facebook was new, when Facebook Live was new and people were getting, impressed with 10 views, those episodes were getting 150, 200, 300 views. At one point, I made a comment about, there was something going on. It was the election. And I think Donald Trump, who was not president at the time, made some comment about Jesus. And so I talked about that in this is the lesson. And, I'm not sure about that. I actually trended on Facebook for about 8 hours.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's pretty.
Wow.
Had like 8,000 views. I mean, that was my biggest claim to fame, but I ended up doing it and it was called Cup of Joe. As a matter of fact, if you ever watch the show, you see me holding that.
Yeah, the
tumbler.
Cup of Joe.
It says Cup of Joe. It was a gift to me from one of my viewers. And he had sent me actually that in a ceramic one, but the ceramic one broke. That's what happened.
Oh, yeah.
But I did
good china.
Yeah. I did 483 episodes in a row.
Holy cow.
I did them every day, birthdays, holidays. One of my favorites was done from the mountains of New Hampshire. My sister lives in a place called Warner, and it's literally up on top of a mountain. And actually, in looking, because I know I had to do an episode, in looking for a signal on the top of the mountain so I could go live, because they didn't have Wi-Fi.
Right. Oh, golly.
I discovered a Revolutionary War graveyard. And the thing that was striking to me about this was most of the people in it were like 19, 16, died at the Battle of Bunker Hill.
Wow.
12, and so I did a Thanksgiving episode that year. That next morning, my episode was from this graveyard, talked about legacy and gratitude for the sacrifice these people made, and so that was actually when I met Jay and told him about the idea for Joe Discovers Claremont, it became Joe Knows.
Joe Knows.
South Lake. So
wow.
That's how I got here. My wife and I moved
that's
here
full
2
circle.
years ago. Full circle.
So now, like in a lot of shows, they always show the highlights, but you don't see it till the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So tonight we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of what Joe does to put bread on the table, and more about what's going on here in South Lake County in real estate. And like you had mentioned, up in the villages, there's a zillion real estate agents. In fact, in this room, there's a real estate agent every 2.5 feet. So holy crap, there's a lot of real estate agents.
One might be a broker.
And maybe. And Joe always tells people in his introductions, he always says, "I'm the plain vanilla realtor for residential homes." And he's definitely not vanilla. So I don't know what flavors are there, but we're going to get into that. So one of the big things, Joe, is people get a lot of information from the internet, and they have these Open Door and Zillow and all these places that they can list their homes, buy homes. So why is it important for somebody to have a local realtor in their back pocket?
Because you need somebody to protect your interests. It's funny. I deal with this all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I describe myself as a plain vanilla realtor. That means I specialize in personal residential real estate. So
Right.
I don't work with a lot of investors. I don't take a lot of commercial real estate unless it's from a very close referral or an existing customer. I actually hand off most of that business. Some people I really want to make sure they get taken care of, so I do it myself. But if you're going to live in it or you have lived in it, I'm probably the best one for you. And the reason is my job, people have this 1970s concept of what a realtor should be. But technology has changed the industry itself. And unfortunately, too many realtors still see their job as the 1970s, 1980s. As a matter of fact, when I first became a realtor, I was with Coldwell Banker, and they had these DVDs you had to watch, training DVDs, right?
Sure.
Come down from the thing. You put in the DVD and you realized all they had done was taken the VHS tapes that they had made in the 80s
and put them on DVD.
And put them on DVD. And it's like, you had people with, women with like the shoulder pads up to here.
Oh, Dynasty, the Dynasty
the
lady.
Dynasty
hair.
bob haircut,
Sure.
and I mean, they'd have techniques like they're trying to train you to do things like, go to all of your friends and hand them 2 cards and say, "Hi, I'm a realtor now. Hey, I'd like to give you one of my cards, and here's a card for your best friend."
Of course. Of course.
That makes you popular at parties. I can remember looking at that, telling my broker, "I'm not going to do that. Nobody will sit next to me at church." That's just, I won't be welcome anywhere.
Well, it's probably better to do that than to be a multi-level marketing guy selling a magical wine or something,
A prayer clause.
something. All of a sudden, hey, honey, Joe's at the front door. Turn the lights out. He's selling us something else, because he can no longer carry those encyclopedias. Now he's selling us something else. The encyclopedias on DVD.
It's really funny. My first broker encouraged me to do a lot, and I tried to look at everything, and I did everything people told me. Well, let's face it. I mean, if you're watching on video, I look like something straight out of The Sopranos. I do. I'm like central casting for any mob movie ever. Okay. If you're recasting The Godfather, I'm like one of the button men. Okay. That's me. So I went out knocking on doors, and because they say, go door knocking. I literally had a guy, and I'd had people like, look out the window and ignore me. And
this is first in real estate is what you did.
And like, I'm obnoxious. So I'm like, well, in another life, I actually collected money for a living. So, and people are looking out their curtain, and you can see the shade moves. Like, I know you're in there. You might as well answer, Like, that makes it even better, right? I actually had a guy answer the door. I knocked on the door, and I saw the curtain move, and I knocked again, and he opened the door. He opened the door, and the door wasn't even open, and the words came out. I was just like, "Look, you go tell Jimmy I'll have the money tomorrow." And I'm like,
okay, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll be back.
I don't know, Jimmy. Who's like, "Jimmy didn't send you?" I'm like, "No." Who's Jimmy? He's like, "Oh, dude, I owe him some money, man."
Oh my God.
I was like, "I thought you were here to collect." I was like, "No, but hey, do you own this house? I mean, because if you need some money, I can help you sell it."
Or you're squatting.
So, the role of a realtor today is not necessarily to help you find a house. Mm-hmm. And I hear these training methods all the time. Well, I'll send you the most updated listings and, the comes off the market stuff. And my role should be to lead you through a transaction. Mm-hmm. Okay. We're transaction brokers by default in the state of Florida, and we can be representative, but even when we're representing someone, my job is not to find a house. In today's market, 85% of my customers that are buyers find the house.
Yeah. With the access to every website,
internet, they have a better idea of the value of a home
because they do it night after night. They search.
And they're looking at what sold, how many square feet it was, even when they're And it's funny, it almost doesn't transfer over to selling because I have to like educate people still. It's like, well,
Yeah.
you know, if you know the guy that, you know, 3 other houses in this neighborhood sold for, you know, $173 a square foot, why is your house going to sell for $297?
And how do you get around that? Because I know those things happen. We've all had that experience where the average price per square foot is X dollars, and the seller is telling you these are Italian marble floors in my $100,000 house, and I should get the money out. So how, as a realtor, do you explain that to the seller that it's over improved without being techie?
I've been told this is wrong by people I no longer work for, but brutal honesty. I don't believe in salesy. You know, when I sit down with people, I tell them I'm going to make you 3 promises. And the 3 promises are, 1, I'm going to communicate with you.
Mm-hmm.
Whether I have good news, bad news, or no news, you're going to hear from me every 7 to 10 days. Okay. And the reason I do that is when I I joined the market at the bottom.
Right.
I mean, it was 2009. It was, you know, my office had 128 listings, you know, and probably 127 of them were grossly overpriced.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah.
You know,
Yep.
you know, my broker didn't want to go through the hassle of representing foreclosures, you know, so that became a challenge. So I tell them and what I did was I would talk to people because I didn't get a lot of business those first 6-8 months. And I would ask them, what do you hate the most about a realtor? And everybody told me the same thing. I never hear from them. I never hear from them. They put a sign in my yard and I never hear from them until it's time to lower the price. Or we go out and look at one house and I never hear from them again. You know, and so I tell people, I promise people you're going to hear from me. Promise number 2 is I'm always going to tell you the truth. And because I'm from the streets of Boston, I don't know how to it's kind of a jarhead thing. I don't know how to sugarcoat it. I'm not very diplomatic. So I'm going to tell you the brutal truth. And it might hurt, you know, the brutal truth, but it's the truth. And promise number 3 is I don't really care much about how you feel about the truth because it's the truth. You know, you could be upset that it's raining, but
The fact of the
Can't do
matter is
anything
it's
about it.
raining.
but it's raining, you know, so cover your head. Let's do something about it. And that's usually how I deal with that is I have an honest conversation. And I have had customers that, you know, I've said, you know, I'd love to help you, but I'm not sure you're realistic. And I come from a perspective of coming high and moving into the top dollar that a listing will get.
Right.
But I do the same thing. I come up with an average. And then I say, okay, well, according to the averages, this is what your house should get. So let's walk around the house and see why your house is above or below average. Well, my house has stainless steel matching appliances. Okay, well, you look, okay, I've got these comps on my computer. They all have stainless steel, so that's average. You know, well, I have the marble, Italian
marble from Tuscany.
you know, okay, well, you don't live in an Italian marble neighborhood, so that's actually makes you below average. You spend a lot of money to be below average, you know.
So brutal honesty.
Brutal honesty.
See now, Lisa and I went on a listing, and we walked in, and I'm the same way. I'm brutally honest. I'm like, that tile has to get fixed. Take down that wall border up there. Change out your ceiling bulbs. Put carpeting in this room. I mean, paint. We went through the whole deal because the seller said, "Well, what do you think the home is worth?" I'm like, "What do we say? $199." I think we sat down for lunch. It was $199.
Or was it even that high? I don't remember.
I was pushing it because they thought it was in the 220s, and so Lisa and I discussed it with them. We said, "Here's a list of everything you need to do to this house. If you do everything on this list, we can get you more than you think you can get." And what did we sell that house for?
What was it?
264,
265 or
26, somewhere in there.
See,
Somewhere in that range.
That's part of that brutal
was huge.
honesty conversation. Okay, how much do you want to sell? And again, it always comes to, I always try to start when I'm dealing with any customer, and it's not just a customer, whether it's my wife and I in our mentoring work, because my wife and I mentor families, whether it's in our recovery and addiction work, or whether it's in real estate, I always start with, what do you want to accomplish? You know, I mean, because if I'm helping a guy with recovery and he says, well, I want to just get back to where I can smoke crack once a week, you know, you're like, okay, well, you know, that's not realistic, because that's never going to happen, you know. And with buyers and sellers, it can be the same thing. You know, what do you want to accomplish? Well, I want a house like mom and dad have, and, you know, and I have a, you know, $250,000 budget, but I want a heart of the Claremont pool home that was built in the last 2 years, just, and, you know, 3,000 square feet, just like mom's. Well, here's brutal honesty. Mom and dad took 40 years to get that house.
Sure.
Now, if you can tell me you can raise your budget, you know, and your mom and dad took 40 years to get their budget to that point. If you tell me you can raise that budget, I actually had, I was telling somebody this story earlier, a couple of years ago, I said this to a young couple. They're 23, 24, right? Just out of college.
Sure.
And I said to her, look, unless you've got some money you haven't told me about, I mean, you know, you've got a $200,000 budget, and, you know, but you want to look at homes, you know, you want homes that are $450,000. And I'm sorry, I can't show those to you. That doesn't pay any respect to the seller or to the other agent. I said, so unless you can tell me you can come up with another $250,000, she said, wait a minute. She picked up her phone. She went, Daddy? Yeah, he says I need like another $250,000. He says I might even be able to get a good deal if I pay the whole thing cash. And I'm thinking, I don't believe this. This is just, you know. She hung up. She said, okay. He said he'll guarantee it.
Let's shop.
That's what I said.
Bingo.
Well, and to me, that's, you know, both of those qualities that you've shown us. Those are the two great qualities that you want really in a realtor. If you're selling, you want brutal honesty. You know, you need to get rid of the hot pink walls, or you need to fix this molding project that you've started, you know, and this is what your house will be worth. And
see, but again, it's back to, what are you trying to accomplish?
Right.
Are you trying to get a quick sale and move on?
Everybody's got different motivation.
You know, I mean, I do a lot of probate work. I just kind of fell into it when I was early in my career, because I was working in the villages, and it turned out that again, you know, so many things we fall into, we just have a gift for. I'm always amazed how that works, where if we're willing to try something, right? The first probate listing I ever got a chance for was actually my first listing. And I was terrified, because I walked in there and they were interviewing 3 other realtors. They were still in their black clothing from the funeral of their mother. Oh, I knew from the phone call when I set the appointment, or when they set the appointment with me, because, you know, when you're a brand new realtor, you're just sitting around waiting for somebody says, yeah, I can see you too. You're like, oh yeah, okay,
yeah, let's go.
You know, 145, you know. And they were all heavy hitters.
Right.
I mean, I knew who they were from like the board classes.
Of course, yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, certain names just pop out.
Yeah. And at the time, I had just learned a concept called inventory pricing, which I still do in my comparisons today. Is, you know, the concept of inventory pricing, especially at the bottom of the market, was, okay, there's 22 houses on the market, but this area, and in those days, I could break it down by village in the village.
In the villages, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's 22 houses for sale in this village. One house a month has sold in this village in the last year. So I go 3 months out, 6 months out, 12 months out. It's one house a month. That means that if there's 22 houses active and it's selling one a month, there's 2 years worth of inventory here. The prices range from 100,000 to 300,000. Which one do you think is going to sell first?
100K all day.
So it's kind of a leading question, right? I mean, it's 100K. Okay. So the question is, how quickly do you want to sell your house? Keep in mind that if you go to the top of the range If you go out to the 22-month mark, well, then other houses are coming in under you, which means you're not at 22 months. You might be at 36
Sure.
months.
And they're going to move anyway.
And they're going to move anyway. So, so I briefly explained this to this lady. I could tell her eyes were still red from crying at the funeral. And I walked past these people. There was one in the dining room, one in the kitchen, one in the living room. They were all heavy hitters. They were talking to a different sibling. I walked out. She was showing me the house. We got outside there was a spot. It was a cute little house, very, very well cared for. And I could just see, we got outside, and that's when I noticed her eyes were still red from crying. And I looked at her and I said, do you really feel up to this? And she gave me this look like, oh my God, no, but I've got to do it. And I'm here. I'm like, look, I deal with everything in technology. Just give you an idea. I don't use a CMA. I was totally lying at the time. I had a CMA in my bag.
Ready to roll. Here you go.
But this guy had been to the seminar and this guy had taught this concept. So I kind of slung it at her and said, I knew my numbers, which helped.
Right.
If you're going to go talk to somebody, you should have the respect to know your numbers, And so I said to her, explained to her inventory pricing and said, I think that this house could do very well. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If you want to sell it quickly and move on, we have to put it at the lower end of that. And if you want to sit on it and maximize dollars, well, we can do that. But, that's going to take quite a bit of time. And, you're not going to be able to wrap up the estate while this sits on it. And I said, but you know what? I think you look exhausted. Obviously, I don't think you're in a spot where you really want to think about this. So just let me tell you, most realtors use I almost feel bad that I did this. I said, most realtors, they use a CMA, and it's called a comparative market analysis. And a comparative market analysis was a really good thing in the 70s and 80s because a realtor had to go down to the city hall and look up the properties and do some work. Somebody put together a comparative market analysis. They were doing work. But because of technology today,
it's like boom, boom, boom.
All I have to do is punch in your address and hit print, and I'll get a 40-page analysis. I said, here's the thing. Most realtors, and I did it just like this. Most realtors who use this is where the acting came in. Remember, I'm still terrified, right? Inside, I'm thinking, are you really saying this?
But the Marine is saying, go,
charge. And I said to her, most realtors that use CMAs, well, they're either dinosaurs or they've been trained by one.
Wow.
And I said, so I use this other thing. It's kind of cutting edge. I mean, it's up to you. And here's the thing. I was willing to do it because I really thought against these three, I had no hope. Right. So I thought, go big or go home. I have nothing to lose.
Right.
Literally nothing to lose. And that helped. That concept of I have, right now I have nothing. If she boots me out,
I'm in the same boat. I have nothing.
Me a bastard. Right. I still have nothing,
But you tried.
But I tried. As we walked, she said, well, thank you very much. She said, I'll give you a call. And the minute she said, I'll give you a call, I thought that was it.
Ain't gonna happen.
Ain't gonna happen. So I said, well, you have my card, my number. We could do all this remotely, through
email and all that.
Email and all that.
DocuSign.
Yeah, DocuSign. Actually, we didn't even DocuSign then. It was fax. I send it to you. You can mail me the originals and fax me, scan or fax me back the copy so we can get started. And as we walked back through the living room, and literally we're going directly from the slider to the front door, all three realtors pulled out a CMA that thick. And I saw the look in her eye, and she was like, her eyes went like this.
Because she had the knowledge. She had the knowledge. Yes.
She's like, oh no.
And she looked at me and she grinned a little bit.
Right.
And she walked out the front door and said, I'll call you on Monday. And
you're like, yes.
Yeah, except it's like Wednesday or Thursday. So I'm on pins and needles going.
Right.
That was that.
Happen, I mean, people say that a lot. We'll think about it, but we're really believing in you, Joe. Yeah.
Go, Joe.
Go, Joe. So that was my first listing, and that was actually part of where I learned to be honest in this business.
Yes.
Is that, I've never liked the whole script concept. I use them, but I use them more because there are common things every buyer seller needs
Yes,
to know.
correct,
Mhm.
correct.
So it's not necessarily a script that I've learned to bamboozle people or to talk them into something they don't want to do. My attitude when I sit with somebody is, what are you trying to accomplish?
Mhm.
Are you trying to move on? Are you trying to maximize dollars? Well, I'm trying to maximize dollars. Enough realtors do not ask this question. Why? Well, because I want to sell my house. Why? Well, because I need the money. Why? There's a common
once
theme
you
here,
know,
you know,
what
Mhm.
they're looking for, then you know how to guide them.
you know what?
Mhm.
Why do you want to? Young couples, very, very common for me. Go, why do you want to buy? Well, because we should buy a house and it was standard. Well, if you pride it, well, we're going to have a baby. Okay. Why? Because you don't want to raise your kid you don't want to have a baby in the awful apartment complex you're in right now. You want to have a safe place for your child. Okay.
Mhm.
I've had people that are in their 40s and 50s. You get down to the why. It's, what you're 45. Your kids are about to be out of high school. Why are you looking for a bigger house? Or why do you want to move? You're in a 2,500 square foot home. Why do you want to buy a different 2,500 square foot home? What are you trying to accomplish?
Mhm.
Well, my mom is starting to deal with some Alzheimer's, and I really anticipate. And I did this with a customer. I got it out of him that eventually he anticipated his mother needing to come live with him.
Sure.
And that's where I think all the newbies, there's 1 in 9 adults over the age of 21 have a real estate license in the state of Florida. Did you know that?
Mm.
You don't find that hard to believe, do you?
Well, I think the mindset of I want to be a realtor is I want to control my income. I want to be in business for myself. But the majority of people that become realtors don't have a business mindset.
I think you're thinking too well of people.
Well, maybe so. I'm trying to give people the benefit of the doubt.
My experience is people become a realtor because they think they're going to make a lot of money and it's going to be easy.
And they get to show houses.
They
And
just
it's
get
going to be
together.
all.
Oh, I love houses.
fun.
I love HGTV. And
Right.
I have now I will say I have known some, usually women with decorating and design degrees who have done very well in this business. They're very, very
Mhm.
hardworking.
Mhm.
But typically the commonality tends to be not.
Right.
Because it's a different mentality to sell a house than it is to decorate a house.
Absolutely.
Because once you get hired to decorate a house, you've already been paid.
Correct.
As a realtor, you have to do all your work up front.
Well, maybe we should change that.
The industry may be changing in that direction.
Well, speaking of changing in the direction, as I said earlier,
You
Joe,
like how I did that?
well, yeah,
Nice pivot.
segue. Well, with a place like Redfin
Mhm.
and these places where the homeowner sees it online, pay no commissions, save money, save time. Why not save money and save time by using an online company to buy your house?
I want to say that Open Door and Redfin have been game changers.
Mhm.
Okay. People don't understand things like this, Zillow Instant Offers. I mean, the genesis of this was out of the We Buy Ugly Houses movement.
Correct.
Mhm.
Okay. Of 20 years ago. Right. Where you could, and these guys, they didn't tell you that what they tend to do is prey on desperate people, who are either going through a bad financial time or are not financially sophisticated, even though they managed to buy a house. Typically the We Buy Ugly Houses, they're buying houses at a premium, and Redfin and Open Door have started to do the same thing. You have to understand the way corporations think.
Mhm.
Okay. What people don't realize is a lot of the houses places like Redfin and Open Door buy, they don't actually sell, or they don't sell to the public. Now, this gets back to what we were talking about before.
Right.
For 7 years, 9 years, I've been talking about the corporate acquisition of single family homes. And there's been some noise on social media lately because an article came out about BlackRock Capital owns $8.6 trillion of single family home real estate. Single family homes have become the asset of choice for cash rich pension plans and for hedge funds. And this has been going on since the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which was created in 2010 by the Frank-Dodd Act, changed the way foreclosures were sold. Prior to that, if a foreclosure was sold, it was brought to the open market and offered to owner occupants. How long have you been a realtor?
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
So you can remember if you did any of these foreclosures or homes, you had to sign an affidavit.
Correct.
That said you were an owner. If you were buying it in the first 30 days, you had to sign the owner occupant affidavit. After 2010, they changed that because they allowed bundling. Before that, if you had a foreclosure, you weren't allowed to buy them all as one piece. They had to be separate transactions. And the idea was the mentality of HUD and FHA and USDA and the VA was, if we have these in foreclosure, we want to put them back into the hands of individual homeowners because that benefits our communities, that increases our tax rolls, makes for a better community, a more stable community with somebody who owns a home. But there were so many foreclosures, the government, as they often do, created a permanent solution for a temporary problem. Now, it had,
as usual.
Yeah, as usual. It had the effect they wanted. It took a bunch of foreclosures off the market, but it didn't stop there. They put no limit. They put no time limit on the change of that rule. It was just an open change, and they put no limit on the bundle. This was when corporations started buying single family homes. Here's the real challenge. Many of these corporations never intended to flip the home. People thought they were going to flip them.
Right, sure.
I'm sure the government people that thought of it said to themselves, hey, let's trust big corporate business because they created the financial mortgage meltdown. So we know they're good at this, right? Let's trust them to do what they should do, which is put some money into these homes and sell them back to the general public over the course of time. But that's not the way it worked. Many of them became rentals. Okay, now you have corporations and you have things like American Homes for Rent. You have Progress Homes. You have American Home Partners, Divvy Homes. These are all organizations that buy homes to rent out. And they have huge positions in the market today. You had things like BlackRock Capital and Blackstone and these larger hedge funds. You're looking at a percentage of the market that is owned by corporations with no intention of turning back, because what they become is rentals. They're absorbing to rent. Now, this article that's getting all the news was about millennials being forced into rentals. And there's some truth to it because there are no homes to buy.
But are there enough homes to rent?
There are homes to rent, but they're hard to rent. Most companies
Usually you have to meet very strict criteria,
Well,
like
and this
sometimes
is-
worse than even buying a home.
Speaking of criteria, do you have to be somewhere?
I have to leave in a couple minutes. Yes.
All right. So when Lisa checks out, she'll just check out. So
What about?
I'll take care of that. Sorry, I didn't mean to break,
That's okay.
but we have a child that has to get picked up.
That's okay.
Or she can walk home. I mean, it's a nice night out. It's not raining. You can walk 8 miles.
Yeah, it's almost dark.
Yeah, it's almost dark.
No
anyway.
worries about
All right.
that.
So, talking about rentals, and here in Lake County, especially South Lake County, the rental rates are astronomical for not only apartments but for homes. So, talking about corporations buying homes, the sellers really don't care that corporation is going to buy their home. Are they that concerned?
Now, actually, some of them are.
Okay.
Some of them are. There is a method today in a crazy world. I want to encourage people that right now we're kind of in a weird time where there are so many buyers that people are just buying up. And if you get a corporation involved, they don't really care about the value of the home.
Right.
Because they're trying to buy most of the corporations that are buying today are not buying to resell. So the Red Door, the Open Door, the Redfin,
it's basically asset based.
They're buying an asset that's going to produce an income.
Right.
Okay. It's a cash. It's preserving their money. It's preserving the capital. And anytime that you can preserve capital and generate income, that's
the dream. That's what we all want to do.
And this has become the challenge, is because corporations hire management companies or have their own, and basically they have stricter, there was a time 10 years ago, if you couldn't get into a big management company, you could drive around till you saw a for rent sign and explain your story to the guy who owned the house, because he might only own 1 or 2 rentals.
Sure. And
he just wants to put a stable family in there.
Property management.
Yeah. And I mean, so his criteria might not require a 600 credit score. The biggest, the big 3 things we deal with, right? Is credit score is going to be a minimum of 600 to rent. We're talking about to rent.
Right.
Minimum of 600. No evictions, no convictions. All right. Which is a challenge for some parts of Lake County. And oh, hello.
I guess we have a visitor. Oh,
people come in. Oh,
I think we have a.
Are we getting a stand-in producer?
Yeah, I guess we have a guest producer.
A guest producer. I like this.
So you can go ahead and put your headset on. Okay. All right. Well, please welcome to the show my son Hunter. Hunter's taking over. Hunter, wave to everybody on camera. Say hi. Hola. What are you doing roaming the streets?
Goofing off, trying to stay out of trouble.
Okay. Are there no outages today?
No.
Okay.
I mean, there probably is, but they're not my problem tonight.
Okay. Well, there you go. Hunter is Hunter works for a local technological company that specializes in fiber optics and cable and internet and blah blah blah.
Is it tough to be named Hunter these days? Do you get undue attention or jokes?
Yeah, usually, as long as people don't take my name personally, then we're okay. they're either like, all right, that's pretty cool. They're just
you have to explain your last name is not Biden.
Yeah,
true.
I get it at
You're
work
a little
too.
long for that.
I get it at work too. They're just like,
well, thanks for coming by the show tonight. We're actually talking about real estate.
That's right.
So, speaking of real estate, Hunter bought his first home last year, right off 455.
Smart move.
Smart
move.
Well, it was. I had to get him out of the house. It was time already.
So that challenge, the biggest challenge, is usually the buy-in for income, because the rates are astronomical. So if you're going to pay $2,200 for a home on a monthly rent, you have to have $6,600 in family income.
Well, I think it's the same for an apartment.
It is. You have to have 3 times the monthly rent. So if you extrapolate that out, you're talking $80,000.
Sure.
I mean, and $80,000, most people can't.
Nobody's got 80 grand.
Not many people are earning 80 grand after taxes.
Right.
I mean,
now at the print shop, we have the ability to print. No, just
that's
kidding.
a different story.
Kidding.
We weren't going to talk about that.
Oh, right. That's a Soprano story.
That's the after hours.
Right. Well, talking about, credit score, qualifying for homes, I think it's harder and harder for young people to buy homes. And to me, my solution is really simple. My solution is, if they can qualify for an apartment based on their income and their credit, they should be able to get a mortgage. I mean, because if they have good credit, that they make the income, why make it that much more difficult to be a homeowner? So,
there are several solutions. I work with Steve Smith, and we do a lot of Steve Smith, local personality. He and his wife, were the founders of New Beginnings.
Oh, right. Okay, yes.
They worked many years. It's an awesome program to help homeless people. The man has a real passion for getting people off the streets and into housing. And my wife and I actually work with several organizations locally here in South Lake that do different things: find, feed, and restore, Brian Broadway's program.
Yep, Brian's a client at the
yeah.
shop, but we do all their
Yeah,
printing for that.
Brian, the whole Broadway family is pretty amazing. Actually,
they are all over town.
You know, I've interviewed both Chief Broadway and Brian.
Right.
They're awesome people. His program is actually kind of unique, and actually part of what I think the ongoing solution is. Brian takes people will donate an RV to him, and they get people into the program, and it's a life skills program. So it's not just, they don't just come in and manipulate, you know, they have to meet certain goals. And so it's similar to New Beginnings. And what he does is he pays their rent at an RV park finds homeless people who are living in a car,
right,
and pays for them to be in an RV park for 6 months. And they have to meet with a mentor, and they have to, meet certain financial goals for savings. The idea is to get them to a place of stability,
of course,
where they can get into an
apartment
or a home,
a more
permanent solution. So that's part of the solution. Steve has moved more into workforce housing, and workforce housing still has an image issue. And when you say workforce housing, to most people, they think subsidized, Section 8,
right.
And that's not the reality. Workforce housing is designed for people who are in that 30 to 40,000, 30,000 and above range. The people who aren't in that 65, 70, $80,000 range, to be able to live. And part of that solution is not just apartments. We've got some great apartments. As a matter of fact, Woodwinds here in Lake County, just off a Grand Highway.
Correct.
Is a program like that. It's income based, but you have to have a job. You can't have a criminal record. You know, it's not the typical sprawl. And if you get up to Woodwinds, that property is absolutely gorgeous. It is maintained very, very well.
They actually had a business after hours up there when they opened. I went to the business after hours.
They actually have in that particular facility, they have counselors to help teach people life skills. So the people who are residents there, you know, if they want to improve their credit to buy a home, they go work with a counselor to show them how to get a home.
Right.
Or if they need to know how to, you know, most people today don't know how to balance a checkbook. So they can learn how to balance a checkbook. So they can do, if they don't have a GED, they can get a GED so that they can improve their financial situation, get a better job, and get some life skills. They teach them how to use computers, how to fill out a resume, interview skills, all of these life skills that are need to be done. But the other part of that isn't just apartments that are affordable, is one of the things Steve and I have talked about. One of the things I think is the future, not just of workforce housing, but of the market in general, is smaller homes. You know, our fathers and grandfathers didn't start their home purchase, you know, with a 3,000 square foot open plan. You know, they had, you know, these guys came out of World War II in Korea, and, you know, if they could get a place that was 2 decent bedrooms and a bathroom with a kitchen, a nice piece of yard for their kids to play in.
Welcome to Levittown, New York. That's what that was. That was post-war housing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is really a place that we as an industry, I think, are going to have to go back to. I think I tell this to people all the time. What we're facing is scary. Okay. I mean, if you extrapolate what's going on, the corporations could easily own half of the single family homes in America in a 10-year period. I mean, that's frightening.
And then nobody will have a home.
And then nobody will have a home. Then the government will have to come in and make some other permanent solution for what should be a temporary problem. They'll probably miss the most easy, simple solution and do something complicated and convoluted, which means you need them even more. I mean, for instance, just simply requiring banks to put a foreclosure on the open market for 30 days before. I'm not even talking about stopping the bundle.
Right.
Just to have an obligation to put a foreclosure back on the open market for 30 days. And that to sell to an individual end user homeowner.
Absolutely.
Not for a flip.
No.
You have to sign that owner occupant.
You have to have requirements.
So this would solve some of the problem. You know, they talk about there's been a shortage of supplies, but now we're starting to see there may be gluts, people who have hoarded things, and now it's coming onto the market. There's going to be a sell-off. I don't think that's going to be a sell-off of homes.
No, I don't think so either. Just because of the restrictions that weren't in place in the early zeros.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and builders being who they are, they might get savings on buying materials,
Correct.
but they're not going to pass that on to the customer.
No, that's not the idea.
You know, that's they're going to continue to do what they're doing. You know, and I mean, there are quite a few builders who, and in my opinion, have taken advantage not just of the homeowners, but of, I mean, you know, in many builders, getting a closing is a nightmare.
Yes.
Even before the current problem.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
I mean, delays, and, you know, you have builders where, you know, they've told somebody they need $15,000 and they have till October, but we're
Mhm.
done with your house in July, so you have to close.
Right.
You know, recently a lot of builders have either stopped paying realtors or come to some small, you know, set fee. I mean, one builder, I won't mention them by name, is paying $3,500.
Yes, it used to be like 5%, and you get
Yeah.
like a $10,000
Yeah,
bonus if you
3,000,
sold.
yeah.
I mean,
But if you sold 5 of them, you got
right,
more,
you
know.
got bigger specs.
But and you know, their attitude is, well, we don't need realtors.
Correct.
Well, you're right. You don't need me
Today,
now,
but you
you
will.
know, but in 10 years you might need
Right.
me, you know. I think that part of the exciting thing though is, and I'm not a doom and gloom guy,
Right.
but sometimes to see the hope, you have to be brutally honest about the situation. And for me, I believe in the market.
Mhm.
And I believe the market will adjust. I believe the biggest problem that we had in the recovery under President Obama was the government stuck their fingers in it and started messing with it. If they had just left it alone, it could have fixed itself. They had $800 billion in bailout money that went to fat cats and CEOs. And I'm a market guy, so I'm
Right.
don't see corporations as the bad guy. A
Sure.
lot of guys do, but $800 billion, they could have literally paid down every underwater mortgage. I mean, the smartest thing to do would have been to pay down every underwater mortgage and save people from going into
Mhm.
foreclosure. And what that would have done would have been to keep the market liquid. You would have still benefited the banks and the profit margins of the banks, but you also would have benefited the end user.
Mhm.
And so people wouldn't have had to, you know, leave town because they wouldn't have had to abandon homes. They would have stayed in homes. Economies would have been bolstered because once you could stay in your home, I'd go to Lowe's and get something to keep it fixed
Mhm.
up. I'd still be mowing the lawn. I'd still be paying for the electric bill. You know, there are municipalities there are subdivisions that are jammed up now because they went 2-3 years with 30% of the homeowners of the homes paying for an HOA
Mhm.
that should have been paid for by 70% more people,
Of course.
you know.
Well, that's very common though.
But I think that what we're going to see is the market will adjust. And I mean, just to give you a couple of examples, one of the things Steve is working on for workforce housing is getting, and counties, it's municipalities are the biggest hindrance to getting some of this done because nobody wants to change their density.
Mhm.
Everybody says, oh, we need to preserve what we have. Well, you know, here's the thing, 300,000 people a year are coming to Florida.
We're going to eventually sink, I think.
You know, you're not going to stop that,
No.
you know, at least not for the next 10, 15, 20 years. So I know you want to preserve what it was like 30 years ago, but here's
Good
some
luck.
brutal honesty, too late.
Yeah.
You know, so you better do something to deal with what's coming now. And the smart politician, the smart city councilor, the smart county commissioner is thinking that way. That guy will stay in office forever because he'll be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Steve has talked about the cost to build container homes. Very easy, could be very affordable. And if you had the proper density, you could put literally you could build another Levittown.
Well, you know, that's really the way to fix this, to me, is there's plenty of land. There's plenty of land. I think that you build starter homes, 1,200, 1,500 square feet
Yep.
max.
Yep.
at a fair price point.
Yep.
And the buyers of those homes have to be required to live in them for 3 to 5 years.
Exactly.
And the rate at which the home can increase in value also must be controlled. So that maybe with the rate of inflation, maybe that's the bar. So that in 3 to 5 years, that person can sell, and somebody new, because they're at that price point, can then buy that property. I think it's a joke that you can buy a house for $150,000 today. Well, not in this
Yeah,
town.
I was going to say where,
and in 12 months it's worth $250, and then $350. I bought a home in Skyridge Valley back in 03, 04, 01, mold, whatever. Bought another house in 05. May of 05, I paid $223. November of 05, I wanted to pull equity out to buy the print shop. They did a drive-by appraisal from Detroit. $403,000. Okay. So that has to be fixed.
But that's, what's really funny is that's one of the good things to say. I don't want to give people the wrong idea. The CFPB did correct some problems.
Yes.
There were some things that needed to be corrected. And I have to say that I hear people talking about a bust. I see these idiot gurus on YouTube talking about a bust. What they're not taking into consideration is that corporate ownership of single family homes.
Correct.
And what people fail to realize is that's never before existed. It's a new thing.
Yeah, that's going to be a driving force to keep the wheels on the bus.
And here's the thing. It's not that I don't see a correction, but I see the correction as more of people will call it a stall, but it means prices are not going to continue to go
Correct.
up. And I don't even think we're in a housing bubble.
No.
I think we're in a buyer bubble. And the buyer bubble is because there's a lot of cash out there. Mm-hmm. And interest rates are low, which means a lot of people can buy houses. Now,
Correct.
Mortgage companies and banks, I believe, when inflation starts to look scary, we don't even have to get the inflation, but when it looks scary, when it's projected to be scary, they're going to be proactive and raise interest rates. And as interest rates rise, some of those buyers are going to drop off.
Yes.
And what you're going to run into is you're not going to have the feeding frenzy anymore. And the feeding frenzy is what killed us in 06. Okay. Everybody was getting a cut.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And what you're seeing now is a feeding frenzy. It's not as bad as it was.
No, it's
a lot
definitely
of it's being
not.
driven by cash. It's not being driven by leveraged borrowed money.
It's the influx of people from out of state moving in. There's a lot of that.
And so because you have, when you
low interest.
Low interest. So, I mean, imagine we're getting a lot of people from large cities coming in. They're fleeing crime. They're fleeing high taxes. And when those economies crash, and now that's where I believe we will see crashes, but they'll be regional and driven by things other than economic considerations, because a corporation's not going to buy a house in the heart of a city that's burning down.
No.
They're just not going to do it. It's there are markets they're just not talking about. Period. End of story. I think New York will be okay. Because
I think it'll come back eventually. I mean, it's just.
Well, New York City is a heart, one of those heartbeat of the world cities, which means
it's a world city. Is what it is.
But someplace like Minneapolis or Indianapolis, someplace like even Chicago,
cold weather.
Detroit, which is actually, I'm not a big fan of the leadership of Detroit.
But is there leadership there? I mean,
but some of the recovery that they've gone through has been absolutely incredible with the influx of business people. But those business people are leaving, and for some certain policies, taxes, and violence. And so when you see regional crashes, a perfect example. Do you know the Gulf Coast? When they remember when the big oil rig was on fire?
Yes.
What was that spill?
Not the Alaskan spill.
No, the one here in the Gulf Coast, off the coast of Mississippi, Alabama.
Yeah, I don't recall the name of it,
but there was a market crash. Of those coastal areas. So that was a regional crash driven by a specific event.
Right, one event.
And I think that's what you're going to see around the country. You're going to see spots. For us here in Florida, it's going to be all out for a while. And what I think we're going to see is it's going to be a stall. Prices won't go up because you have less buyers. We'll get back to a more normal market where house goes on the market. It sits there for three to 4 weeks. Multiple offers will go back to 1 or 2 offers.
Yeah, it's definitely going to change.
Yeah.
It just has to.
But here's the best part. It's fascinating to watch. And the opportunity is in anticipating and watching what some of those opportunities, is it in small container homes? Is it in, mortgage people? In Europe, the average mortgage is 50 years. In parts of Asia,
it will change. 30 years will change. It's no different than the auto industry, where 4-year loans were standard.
Yeah, exactly.
Now you can go 84, 96 months, 120 months.
Well, in Tokyo, there are mortgages that are 99 years. 2 generations have to qualify when they give the mortgage.
Wow.
Because they realize that one generation is going to live there for 30.
Right. The next generation come in and get another 30.
And of course, hopefully by that point, there's enough equity and pay down.
Right.
And there are things about the Asian market I don't understand, but my point is there are already solutions out there nobody's using yet. Well, and that's can be exciting if you're willing to look at it. Right. I have a friend who has, I promised her I would not share what the idea is, but she's got an idea for rentals that are, I'm actually fascinated. It was such a simple idea. You ever see somebody get an idea and you think, oh, that's such genius. I'm ashamed I didn't think of it.
I think about that all the time.
Right?
And the next thing I know, I Google it and somebody's done it.
Somebody's done it, right? But that's what I think. And this is one of the things I think is unique about America. I really hate it when people say that our country is not an amazing, awesome, wonderful place. When you put us in the baskets of awful places and awful things, if you put the list of awful things we did and you put all sorts of countries in that list, even only going back to the history of the U.S.,
right,
we've got far less on our list than anybody else.
I still think it's the greatest country in the world. So, that's...
Well, there's a reason so many people are trying to get here.
Yeah, this is the only... It's a land of opportunity. You can still come in here with $1 in your pocket and be a billionaire. So, that's where we're at. Hey, we could talk all night about real estate.
We could.
Good golly, this is a long show. Boy, oh boy.
You and I could talk all night about almost anything. I'll bet.
Well, as you've learned from Joe, he's not a plain vanilla real estate guy. So if you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, this is the guy you want to talk to. He has all the knowledge, he has all the tools, and he's at your service. Like he said, he makes promises to you that he keeps, and that's who you want to go with when you're looking for real estate. We're just going to have a little bit of fun real quick before we depart tonight. Part of the show is music.
I love it.
So, Joe, first concert you went to?
The first concert I actually attended in person. The first big band concert was the Grateful Dead.
Oh, all right.
I was in my 20s.
Bob Weir and Jerry Garcia and
yeah,
the whole gang.
Yeah,
yes,
back
sir.
at the heyday.
Yes, sir.
Hell in a Bucket time period in the 80s. And I did tour with the Dead. Well, followed them for a little bit. I saw them Mile High Stadium and Madison Square Garden.
Oh, okay.
Seen them quite a few places.
So you're a Deadhead.
Yes.
Wow. I would have never.
First, I was a Leadhead.
Oh, well, yeah. We all were.
I went to college and met some folks. And actually, I had a friend I used to give a hard time about. She was a Deadhead, and
right.
She was all, the tie dye and the whole thing. And I just used to give her such a ration of crap. And finally, she said, "Do you ever listen to it?" And I was like, "I'm not going to listen to that hippy dippy crap."
And sure enough, you did.
Well, no, I was hanging out with her one day, and she had this stuff playing, and we had been hanging out for like 3. You know how you do in college?
Of course,
we was hanging out for 3 or 4 hours together, smoking and joking, and when I'm bopping, I'm like having a good time. And I didn't even think about it. It was like good music. So finally she stood up, she starts jumping up and down. I got you. I got you. I got you. I was like, what? She's like, you've been listening to the Grateful Dead for the last 4 hours and you're loving it. And I was like,
And that was it.
gee, I guess maybe I should get more into this.
First album.
The first album I ever
First
bought.
album, or was it on 8-track?
Wasn't
Mine
on
was
it.
8-track.
It was an album. The first album I ever bought was a Kiss album.
Was it Kiss Alive?
It was Kiss Alive.
Kiss Alive.
Dr. Burnin' Love.
Right. One of the greatest live albums actually
That's
still
right.
today.
That's
Kiss
right.
Alive.
I also got I think that same time I bought I'm trying to remember who it was. Had the song My Sharona.
The Knack.
The Knack.
The Knack.
It was The Knack.
The Knack.
So I bought those 2 albums the same day.
Wow.
You know, they were my thing, you know. And back in those days, you would listen to an album over and over and over, and they had the words on the inside. You'd memorize.
Oh yeah, of course. That's how it was.
That's how you memorized them.
And see, we had cassettes and 8-tracks
Yeah.
too, which we remember.
Yep. I was actually telling somebody earlier today that, you know, before we had turntables that actually connected to cassette players,
Yes.
I used to put my albums on, because albums were a thing. Like they are today. It's
All of a
just-
sudden now
all
they're
of a sudden,
valuable.
yeah, like, you know, suddenly I
I'm
made
gonna pull out my white album that's in there.
And I used to like put an album on and then take my mini cassette player, you know,
Your boom box
this big,
right in front
It
of
was
it.
just before they were boom boxes.
Okay.
They weren't called boom boxes then. They were cassette players because they were that big. They had to
Yes.
be, you know. And I would put it in front of, because the mic was like in the middle of this big old box, right? And I would put it in front of the speaker of my turntable, right? Because they were separate units,
Right.
you know. And that's how I was an early adult, because I couldn't afford the cassette. My rich friends
They had
in
cassettes.
school, well, when they got an album, they also got the cassette.
Wow.
And that's,
Well, you know,
so-
we all can't be wealthy.
yeah.
One of the things I like to do is this or that. So let's see how you do.
This could be dangerous.
Not really. Ocean or pool?
Pool,
Country or city?
city,
Ice cream or popsicle?
popsicle.
Barbecue or seafood?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm gonna say barbecue,
Hamburger, hot dog?
hamburger.
Yankees, Red Sox. I know.
I gotta go to sleep next to that woman tonight.
it's Red
Sox.
Well, hey, on that note, Joe, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show tonight. Boy, we've covered a lot of ground. So if nobody has known who Joe is other than Joe knows, now everybody knows Joe. So you'll catch us again next time on Tiki Hut Central, the podcast. You can find Joe. Where can everybody find you, Joe?
You can find me on Facebook, YouTube. You can watch me on South Lake TV, and keep an eye out for Jono South Lake YouTube channel coming soon.
And we can find you running. You're always running
Yes, I am always
somewhere.
running somewhere.
Mm.
I want to encourage you. If you see me in a store, you see me in a restaurant, please come in and say hi. I just love people.
Well, thanks, Joe. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. We're out.
All right.